Welcome to the New School of Marketing podcast, the place for smart, simple strategies that will amplify your business results. Sharing practical tips, insider knowledge, and actionable advice because marketing is something that every business owner can do. Now, let's get started. Introducing your host, Bianca McKenzie, mum, lover of snow sports, camping, horse riding, and in-demand launch strategist and Facebook advertising knowledge bank.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Or if you're new here, hello. You've just tuned in to the podcast all about marketing your business in a digital world. Here you'll learn the latest about online marketing and digital advertising. I'm super excited that you're here. Well, last week we had some really cold nights, and I mean seriously cold. And you'd think that I'm used to it being from the Netherlands, but it has been so long that I really have forgotten how cold it gets. I'm literally still acclimatizing to Tasmanian winters because it's super cold. I do love the frosty nights though. It means that we get crisp sunny days and they are seriously spectacular. Like if you have not been to Tasmania, it is so beautiful when we have the blue skies and the crisp winter days. And you know what? We have a fireplace in this house and we don't really use it all the time, mostly on the weekends, but it's so nice and cozy. Just, I love to sort of stop and slow down a little bit in winter. So yeah, anyway, I do often share my frosty morning pictures on Instagram stories. So if that's something you're into, follow me on Instagram. I also post a lot of other things, but sometimes I like to share some of those beautiful views that we get. I'll pop the link in the show notes. Okay, so in today's episode, I want to talk about 3 things successful store owners, online store owners, do regularly. And of course, there are many more things they do, but I'm focusing on things that move the needle, things that will make a difference to your sales and your bottom line. So the first thing is that they know their numbers. They're not afraid to dive into the analytics side of things to see what's working and what isn't. As an online store owner, you simply can't put your blinkers on and ignore your stats. You need to know on a day-to-day, week-by-week basis what your sales are, what your conversion rate is, how you are going compared to last week and against the same period last year. And I completely geek out over this information. And if you pay really close attention, you'll actually start seeing trends and stories out of all of those numbers. So knowing your numbers is super important if you want to know how your business is doing or if you want to make improvements. And there are all sorts of numbers to know. So in addition to sales and conversion numbers, you should also be paying attention to your website statistics. Which pages are people visiting? How many are leaving straight away? How long are people on pages? How does this compare to your sales of those products? How many are adding to cart? How many are abandoning cart, etc.? It is important to know all of these numbers, and you can compare them against industry benchmarks as well as your previous months and years. And you can only sell more or get better if you know where you're at right now. So that leads me on to the second point, and that one is that they review their website regularly. There's a reason for mentioning knowing your numbers first. Once you know your numbers, you can actually start making improvements. And successful store owners regularly review their website or they get an expert to audit their website because they want to do better. That's why it's so important to know your website stats too. There are also other ways to look at how your website is performing. For example, you could use heat mapping tools that show you where people spend most amount of time on a page and where they're clicking. For example, if you look at one of your product pages on a heat map and you see that people are spending lots of time reading the product descriptions and clicking around that area, but they're not purchasing that product, you might need to spend some time investigating why that is. It could be that your description isn't clear enough and people are still having questions that have not been answered. Review your website regularly from a usability perspective, but also to make sure everything is still working. Technology isn't a set and forget kind of thing. You need to make sure that everything is still working. If your sales are dropping, find out why. It could simply be that there's a tech glitch and you'd really hate to disappoint customers that are trying to buy your products. I don't have an online store anymore, but even with my website, there are issues that sometimes I don't know about. Like if my web host is doing updates or they're making changes, I don't always hear about it, but my website may be affected. And trust me, it has happened. So keep an eye on yours and regularly review it. And the third thing that definitely deserves a mention is that they email their database regularly. If you have an online business, your email marketing list is your best friend. Email marketing has the highest ROI, return of investment, out of all marketing tactics, and you really should be using it regularly. Some business owners are afraid to email their list regularly because they think it's too much, but really people sign up to hear from you and want to know what's new or special or anything promotions that you have on. And don't be afraid to get unsubscribers. It is part of business and those people were probably not going to buy from you anyway. Focus on those that are staying and want to hear more about your store. Also, check out, just you can run a Google search on what the benchmarks are in terms of your industry and unsubscribe rates. Because if you fall within the benchmark, that is just it. It is part of business to get unsubscribers. So email has a high ROI, return on investment, and you should really be emailing your list weekly if you can. It doesn't mean that you should be running sales or promotions all the time. Please don't. And also don't just email your list when you do have a sale and not send anything outside of sales periods, because then you are just training your audience to wait for your sales. You really want to be emailing them regularly. I would say weekly, and I would not run sales or promotions any more than 2 times a year, maybe 3 times a year, because people will just wait for the sales otherwise. And there are lots of things you can be emailing your list with. For example, new arrivals, collaborations, something you're organizing for a specific day, like, I don't know, National Roller Skating Day. I don't know. I'm just making it up, but there probably is a day for that. You can create emails with product combinations, tips on how to use something, other ways they can use your products, any bundles you've created, and of course, also focus on selling your product without having a sale. So people are joining your email marketing list to stay in the know and they get updates. They want to get the updates. They don't just sign up to get sales emails, and it's definitely not the only thing you want to be sending them. So get creative, get to know your audience, and stay in touch with them via email. Okay, so there's the 3 things successful store owners do regularly. A little recap: they know their numbers, they review their website, and they email their database. It's up to you now. You can do this too. All right, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the New School of Marketing podcast. I can't wait to share more tips with you next week. And if you are ready to take your business to the next level with Facebook and Instagram advertising, make sure you visit newschoolofmarketing.com to download practical free resources, plus subscribe to the podcast and never miss an episode. I can't wait to go on this journey with you. Until next time, take care and market your business every day.